Building a business is the most confronting experience you will ever have.
Don't do it alone. When you first become an entrepreneur, you think you know what to do because you stepped out of a successful role of some kind in your past. Get help. You need mentors. You need coaching.
They spent 30 years on the front lines of healthcare, watching a lot of talented leaders burn out, check out, and some even walked away. But then they figured out why, and the answer had nothing to do with working less. Welcome back to The Root of All Success. I am your host, the real Jason Duncan. This is episode number 351. And my guests, you heard that right. There's two, I don't have a list, but there's two guests today are Dr. Tracy Christopherson and Michelle Troseth. They are co-founders of a company called Missing Logic. And it's these ladies are going to be some of the sharpest thinkers that we've come across in a long time. And they know a problem that every entrepreneur knows personally. And that's the tension between building your business and actually having a life. And for those of you who follow me outside of just the podcast, you know what I do for a living. You know that I talk about this a lot, which is why I wanted these ladies on the show. So Tracy and Michelle have spent years studying why driven and capable leaders burn out. And what they found is that most of us have been trying to solve the wrong problem. And their framework, Polarity Intelligence, is the idea that some of the tensions that you're facing aren't problems to fix. They're actually dynamics to manage. So once you understand the difference, everything is going to change. And they wrote a book on it. They literally wrote a book on it. And they host the Burnout Proof Leadership podcast. So Tracy, Michelle, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having us. We're so excited to be here.
Well, this is great. So for my listeners, they know that I don't often have two guests at the same time. So this is going to be an interesting conversation. But we'll start here. Both of you have watched some brilliant and driven leaders totally burn out and walk away. And you've been watching this for decades. And what I understand in my research getting ready for the show is that your conclusion is we have been misdiagnosing the problem the whole time. And so I want to ask, what are we actually dealing with here? What is this burnout thing? Why are we making the wrong diagnosis? And why does that wrong diagnosis end up making everything worse?
Well, because we approach so many things in life as a problem to solve. It doesn't matter what industry you're from, what role you're in, entrepreneur, healthcare leader. We are trained since we're children to just fix a problem. And so when it comes to burnout, everyone wants to point their finger to something else. And coming up in healthcare, what Tracy and I recognized is everyone wanted to blame the system a lot. But they didn't really recognize that we all have an individual accountability to it as well, and that there is this tension between personal responsibility and organizational responsibility. And the underlying tension is a polarity. And I'll let Tracy explain to you what a polarity is.
Yeah, so a polarity are two interdependent values. They appear to be opposite or contradictory to each other, but they're actually in this interdependent relationship. And so when you think about work and life as an example, we really need the best of both, right? We want the most successful career or business, and we want a very fulfilling personal life. But we often make false choices and we shift our attention to one and neglect the other. And that's what starts to create the burnout. We're making a false choice. We need both, but we're not balancing our attention between the two to get the best outcomes of both.
So when you use the word polarity, I'm going to make the educated assumption that all of us would understand the poles on a magnet. There's a north, south, not necessarily, but there's a positive and a negative, and there's polarity. So one attracts, one detracts. And so you're talking about that's something that's going on inside us too, right? Is that what that means?
Oh yeah, it happens inside us in our personal lives. Don't think left brain, right brain. That's an example of a polarity in our mind, right? Sometimes some people are a little more right brain and some are a little more left brain, but we have to have both, and they function together to help us do all the cognitive and imaginative thinking that we need to do in our lives.
Yeah. And you both have spent years working inside healthcare, which is one of the most high pressure, high stakes environments that there is. So what were you seeing And what were you seeing that was happening to the best leaders in the world that made you think, man, this is bigger than just stress management. This is something different.
Oh yeah, burnout has been going on forever in healthcare, and it's always looked at as a problem. And Tracy and I recognize that. And actually, what started it was a story about one physician that committed suicide, that really just broke everyone's hearts and made you start wondering what was this really about. So when Tracy and I left healthcare, at that point in time, 400 physicians a year were committing suicide. And I just read the other day, it's up to 500. So this is still an underlying, it's a problem. What people don't realize is we're not looking at it through the right lens. And we really have to have people recognize how empowered they are to leverage polarities in their personal life. And then also the organization. It's not an either or, it's an and in both. So we recognize that, and we really left initially to help really deal with this clinician burnout.
Well, you guys are not just only working with clinicians and leaders in the corporate world or in the healthcare world. You're also working a lot with entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
So when entrepreneurs hear the word burnout, a lot of them think the answer is just slow down or work less. But you're saying that isn't it. I'll tell you a quick story. So yesterday I had a call with a potential client, someone who reached out to me. We have on our website something called the Business Burnout Test. So you can go to businessburnouttest.com, and it's a questionnaire you take, and it kind of demonstrates, where you are on the level of burnout, and it's aimed at entrepreneurs. So that's something. So she took it. She's been reading my book. She calls, and she is like on fire, burnout, like is so bad, and yet wouldn't make a decision to do anything. That I said, look, do this and this will work. So what's actually causing this? Because it's not just about working less or slowing down. What is actually causing it, and why do these standard fixes don't stick?
Well, it really is we're ingrained with this either or mindset. And it really stems back. We're indoctrinated with it. If this answer's right, that answer's wrong. If this is the right solution, that's the wrong solution. And so our minds think in this either or pattern. I either have a successful business or I have a successful life. And we haven't learned to retrain our brain to think in terms of both and. And then we need a strategy. We need a framework, processes to help us get the best of both. And people that are business owners, leaders, right? Mostly high performers, type A, it's ingrained in them, push, drive, rest later, just keep moving, keep pushing. And so that's deeply ingrained in them. And what you have to do is step back and reimagine your life and reimagine who you are in that life and start to shift those limiting beliefs and patterns that you have, and to develop newer patterns that are more framed in the both and. That your personal life is equally as important as your business or your leadership. One's not more important than the other. And if you want a high quality life, you have to have the best of both.
All right. So Michelle, give me a real example here. I want you to take something that an entrepreneur deals with every day. Say, like the tension between staying hands-on in the business versus delegating and stepping back. How would Polarity Intelligence change the way that they handle that?
I think a great example of that, Jason, is planning and execution. So a lot of entrepreneurs really are go-getters. They start a business and they just go after it, and then they get in the business and they're kind of like the all-star player in their business. And they really don't back up. They don't back up enough to recognize how important the planning aspect is and all the benefits of planning in advance, taking that strategic thinking time, stepping more into the role of the head coach of the business instead of being in the weeds and always executing and executing. And you actually can map this out in a blueprint and really get clear yourself on all the benefits if you plan as an entrepreneur, so that you can then step through those execution points, or delegate it to a team is really what you want to do.
So I'm a founder, and I get stuck in that loop just like anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I can delegate, then things go sideways. I jump back in and I can't get out. What does your framework say is actually happening in that situation?
Well, you're swinging back and forth. So you give your attention to planning and you take your attention off of execution. So you start to experience the negative consequence of that over focus. Then you swing your attention back to executing because you've been experiencing the loss of those benefits of executing, and you let go of the planning. So you're in this pendulum swing back and forth. And what we're saying is this is more like an infinity loop. It's a dance between the two. And what we do is help leaders and entrepreneurs create an early warning system to know when they are over focusing their attention in one area and neglecting the other. Remember, these have to be in a dynamic dance with each other. You need a flow between the two. It's not focus on one, drop it, then focus on the other. So you're looking for that dynamic flow and signs when you're out of the flow state.
So when you were talking earlier about this, going from what they are to being the head coach of the business, which I think is a pretty cool, clever way to put it. One of the phrase that I use to describe the problem is called the hero syndrome. And I talk about this in my book about the hero syndrome, is that we want to put on the cape, swoop in and save the day, because when we started, that was how we did everything. And it felt good and it was good to be needed. But unfortunately, we stay in the hero syndrome way too long, and that keeps us stuck. And we go from working on vision to putting out a fire, working on vision to putting out a fire, and we're going back and forth.
Yes.
What do you think about this idea of hero syndrome? I know you don't know my content as much as you know your own, of course. What do you think about that?
It's the same thing.
Yeah, very similar, very similar. Yeah. And because you are playing the hero or you're being the all-star player, running all the plays, doing all the things, you're not letting go enough of the things that you should be letting go of and giving your attention to the other elements that you can. So that's exactly what we're saying. What we're saying with the head coach is step back, coach your team up. You have a team, you have VAs, you have people that are there to help you. You didn't hire them to have them watch you work. You're right. You hired them to do the work. So it's about coaching them up so that you can step further and further into that leader. And ultimately, we say you end up in the owner box.
Love it.
Where your team works for you and with you. And that's the other element that I think, when it comes to polarities, it's not just the knowing when you have a problem or a polarity, but it's sitting in the tension of it and having healthy relationships and being able to engage in meaningful conversation. And that's how you can coach your team up so that they can meet your expectations and fulfill the obligations of the business.
All right, we're going to take a quick pause before we keep going in this great conversation about burnout. If you are getting value from this conversation, I want to make sure you never miss an episode. Head over to youtube.com/TheRealJasonDuncan, assuming you're not there right now watching this show. But if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any other of the podcast players, go over to youtube.com/TheRealJasonDuncan and subscribe. Every episode goes up there. Plus, we've put exclusive content on building a business that doesn't need you and about the lies you believe and the truths that you don't. So go to youtube.com/TheRealJasonDuncan. Now, I want to talk about our sponsor for today's episode right before I get back to the conversation with Michelle and Tracy. And our sponsor today is Bank on Yourself. If you're an entrepreneur and you're tired of cash flow being at the mercy of banks and market savings or market swings rather, or loan approvals, all these things you don't control, there's a smarter way to do this. It's called Bank on Yourself. It's a strategy that lets you build your own private source of funding using a specially structured life insurance policy. And your money grows every year, regardless of what the market does. And you get to access it when you need it without any applications, no credit checks, and you get to set the terms. So entrepreneurs all over the country are using this type of fund for growth, to cover expenses, to build real financial independence. I personally been doing this since 2019. I wish I'd have known about it 30 years ago. It would have been much better for me financially. But if you want to learn, go to therealjasonduncan.com/bank on yourself. That's therealjasonduncan.com/bank on yourself. Book a confidential session with one of our specialists who I recommend. It's not my company. It's somebody I recommend. So go to therealjasonduncan.com/bank on yourself. Now back to the show. So ladies, you built an entire company around this concept. And most business partnerships, especially ones built around shared intellectual frameworks, they eventually hit a wall. So we got two partners here. What's the tension in your own partnership that you've had to learn to manage instead of fix?
Well, Michelle and I are a walking polarity. So I think the tension has been, Michelle holds more of what I would call a feminine energy. So she is more around vision and relationships, those elements. I am more the masculine energy. So I am the driver of the business, kind of more the integrator, the operations, productivity. And that was something we weren't aware of. After 40 years of friendship, we bumped into this tension between the two of us and began to realize that we were actually fighting a polarity within our own relationship as leaders in our business.
So am I hearing you just say you just embrace the polarity and just realize that there are differences and you just okay with that?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So we were in business for a few years, and, in that beginning part, you're just figuring it out. You're learning, you're trying different things. And Tracy and I were actually on a road trip together, and we were in a hotel room together in California, and she was really frustrated about things not getting out the door. And I was really wanting to go talk to people. And we just had this moment, and it was just like, oh my gosh, we are a walking polarity. This is what we are. We've been friends all this time we've been teaching this concept, and here it is. It is us. And actually, it was a huge relief. Like, oh my gosh, well, all we got to do is lean into it, honor each other's differences, figure out how to work together in different ways. And it has really made that difference. And I feel like we have been able to help so many entrepreneurs because we live it on a daily basis, and we can help explain it. And we'll always live with it. But I think that was just a pivotal moment for us when we realized that we were letting the tension get to us, and really all we needed to do was lean into it and do that dance ourselves. That's what we've been doing now for several years.
Well, so let's say a leader who's listening to this, they hear all of this and they think, okay, that's fine, but I still got to make decisions. I still got to pick a direction. I still have to commit. So does your framework ever become an excuse to avoid making hard calls?
Oh no. Oh no, not at all. Actually, directive decision making is necessary. The buck has to stop someplace, and there are times when somebody has to make a decision. And there is a time when there needs to be participative decision making, because you need the objective perspectives of other people that have had different experiences than you. So directive decision making and participative decision making, that's a polarity as well. So it's never about not making a directive decision, but it is about knowing when that needs to happen and when you need participation in your decision making.
Yeah.
So what does a leader look like who's actually living this out well? I mean, versus one who's heard the language and maybe even learned the language, but hasn't really made the shift?
I would say they truly are dynamically balanced in all aspects of their life. They know when to shift their energy or, to other parts of their life that might be calling them without dropping the other component. So they're able to just really make wise decisions in the moment. I think these leaders too, they ask different questions because they see both poles. They see both perspectives. They have a very holistic view at home and in their business. So they're very wise, and they ask really great questions as well. And I think they're masters at relationships.
Yeah, I would say they lean into tension.
Yeah.
Because it's about leveraging tension, not letting tension go. So they really lean into the tension to learn from it, and they lean into resistance. Because there is wisdom in resistance, and resistance usually it can oftentimes represent a wisdom you don't have and a representation of a pole that you are not considering.
What is, and I want both of you to answer this. 'Cause I'm hoping that you both have different answers, although it's probably going to be similar. What's something that you used to believe about leadership or even about burnout that you flat out don't believe anymore?
Mm,
Yeah.
that's a great question.
Well, I think I've always believed this, but like I would say, Jason, I believe it even more now. And that is really everyone's a leader. Doesn't matter your role, even in our company with different roles and different, what people would think of levels. Everyone steps up in a leadership role to contribute their part. So I think looking at people as the leader and the potential in them is really something that I truly believe.
I think for me, it's that you have to work hard and sacrifice to be successful. I just flat out do not believe that. I think that's just something we've been indoctrinated with as leaders, as entrepreneurs. And I think you can be very successful without the hustle and the grind and the sacrifice.
Amen. Amen. That everybody needs to hear that because that's we've been taught the lie is that the hustle and grind is what does it. We make that the goal. You just got to hustle and grind, and that's just not
Mm-hmm.
absolutely not true. Okay, so let me kind of shift to the core theme of the show. The show is called "The Root of All Success," and what do you believe has been the one key that has unlocked success for the two of you more than anything else?
Well, for me, I would say dynamic balance. Again, it's that being in that flow and the balance between the tensions that we feel personally in our relationship with each other, but also within our company. So maintaining
Mm-hmm.
that balance between the polarities that exist that will always be there and being very vigilant about managing that.
Michelle, what do you think?
I would say just also being really aligned with your values and what your strengths are. So even though Tracy and I are opposite, I think just really embracing the things that are my preference poles and what I really value dearly and being aligned to those while also contributing to the two of us and where our company is going and how we work in partnership has been definitely a secret to success.
So, Michelle, how do you personally define that word success?
Well, I define it as just feeling joyful and waking up every day and loving what you do and doing what you love.
So, by that definition, do you consider yourself successful?
Absolutely.
Well, Tracy, I'm going to ask you the same thing. How do you personally define success?
Well, for me, it's being 1% better today than I was yesterday. I'm about growth and evolution. If my thinking is expanding, if I'm growing, if I'm learning, then I consider that I'm successful. And yes, I am very successful. I have learned more about myself in the last 8 years and grown more than I ever thought possible.
So, what if you had to take all that you guys have learned over the last couple of decades doing this stuff? What's your best piece of advice today for an entrepreneur listening to this show?
I would say don't do it alone. When you first become an entrepreneur, you think you know what to do because you stepped out of a successful role of some kind in your past. And I would just say that, get help. You need mentors. You need coaching. You need to learn from people that are 2-3 steps ahead of you that have already walked this path. And so I think that's critically important because you have blind spots, right? You don't know where all the holes are until you start taking this journey. So definitely to not go alone and get support.
All right. Tracy, anything different other than that?
Yeah, I would say building a business is the most confronting experience you will ever have. So I say that you really have to think about your identity as a business owner, what that means to you, what characteristics you need to embody to get the success you're looking for, and really look at your beliefs and how those might be holding you back. It's really what I call your internal operating system that will drive your success. So the sooner you can focus on that, the more successful you'll be and the faster you'll be successful.
All right. As we get ready to close our conversation, I've got a few rapid fire questions that I want to ask you, and I'm going to let each of you answer them, but we're going rapid fire. So first thing comes to your mind, let's get on it. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right. Tracy, you get the first one. A leader that you'd want to shadow for a full week, dead or alive, any field.
Barack Obama.
All right. What about you, Michelle?
I would do Ben Carson.
All right. Two very different people. Two very different people. All right. Tracy, one book besides your own that every burned out entrepreneur needs to read.
Oh, geez. Oh my gosh.
See, Michelle's getting more time to think about this.
I know. Let her answer. I'll come in.
She gets to go first on the next one.
Let them. I would say let them.
Let them. Oh, I don't know this book. This is what's this? Tell me about
Oh,
no,
Mel Robbins.
I'm not telling you about Mel Robbins.
Oh, so it's her book?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, Michelle, what about you? One book besides your own that every burnout entrepreneur.
Oh, besides my own?
Yes, besides your own.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the first book that came to my mind was Traction, because the visionary integrator is a polarity in itself.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, Michelle, you get the next two first. So then Tracy has a little time to think about these. So what's one thing that most people would never guess about you from your professional bio?
Oh my gosh. I have a loud laugh.
And she backs away from the microphone, folks, when she laughs. So she's telling the truth. All right. What about you, Tracy? What's one thing most people would never guess about you from your professional bio?
That I'm an introvert.
Say that again. Your mic went really low on that one for some reason.
I'm an introvert.
Introvert. Oh, okay. All right. All right. Michelle, and Tracy, last question. Michelle first. Best piece of advice that you ever got. Who gave it and what did they say?
Oh my gosh. Best piece of advice I ever got. Why is this so hard? Because I get so much advice from so many people.
That's why.
Oh my gosh, this is just really amazing. I guess I just want to say probably my husband, who just has said, follow your heart. Just follow your gut, follow your heart, and everything will be okay.
Nice. What about you, Tracy? Best piece of advice you ever got, and who gave it to you, and what they say?
Yeah, I would say from my husband as well, just trust yourself. Trust yourself.
Nice. You guys aren't married to the same person, right? This is not.
No, but we are a foursome. Our husbands are best friends too. So,
well, it's been a pleasure having you ladies talk about this. And I really want to encourage my audience specifically to go look into your stuff, because my audience, probably more than most shows that you guys might guest on, this is what we talk about. We talk about burnout. We talk about being the hero. We talk about how to, as my book title says, exit without exiting. We talk about how to get out of the weeds. This is what we talk about in my client circles. So this has been an interesting conversation. So go to missinglogic.com, everyone. That's missinglogic.com. And you can follow them on LinkedIn at Missing Logic LLC. You can look them up there. And you can find Michelle Troseth and Tracy Christopherson both on LinkedIn. We'll have the links in the show notes. We'll make sure that gets in the show notes to find them. Ladies, I'm going to give you the last word. What would you like to say as we close out for today?
I would just say, don't eliminate tension from your life. Learn how it works and leverage it.
All right. Tracy?
stay the course. Stay the course and get off the field. Get off the field. Coach your people. They're there for you.
Good. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for being on the show today. It's been a pleasure. And thank you, listeners, for listening. This has been The Root of All Success, episode number 351 with Dr. Tracy Christopherson and Michelle Troseth, co-founders of Missing Logic. And I want you to go check that out. And Polarity Intelligence. They wrote this book called Polarity Intelligence. So go check out that book. I think you're going to like it. Don't stay burnout. You know, as I was told a long time ago, awareness is the key to recovery. So you've got to be aware of it. So as soon as you become aware that burnout is a real thing, then you need to go take a look at that. What can you do to get past that and lean into the tension of it, as we talked about? There's some polarity in there. What's the yin and yang? What's the positive and negative in that? Well, how are you going to go back and forth? And if you need help with that, go talk to Michelle. Go talk to Tracy. Reach out to them at missinglogic.com. Thank you again for tuning in for this episode of The Root of All Success. Please make sure you tune in again next time when I talk with yet another one or two very successful entrepreneurs about their story of success. And until then, as always, I am your host, the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Attention business owners. Attention business owners. Feeling burnout from running your business? Uncertain if you're nearing burnout? Take our free 10-question business burnout test at businessburnouttest.com to discover where you stand. With just 10 quick questions, you'll learn how to immediately begin making changes to regain freedom and success. Cut your daily operations time in half. Improve your quality of life and prepare your business for your future exit without losing revenue or profit. Visit businessburnouttest.com now and take the test. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.